$1 million warehouse versus $1 million retail shopfront. Which one is going to give you the better deal not only now, not only the next 12 months, but for the next 3-5 years, allowing you to grow your portfolio? $1 million shopfronts right now versus $1 million warehouses. Where are you going to get the best cash flow, capital growth, and ensuring that in the future you can buy and buy again? This video, I'm going to showcase to you what kind of returns you should be getting right now if you're buying a shopfront versus a warehouse, plus the future capital growth potential. And if you stay tuned till the end, there is going to be a profile that I'll be sharing with you that you should be looking for when you're investing in either retail or warehouse properties. My name is Helen Tarrant. I help everyday Australians become wealthy through investing in commercial property, and I can help you half the time of your investment journey through investing in commercial property, not instead of residential, but along with residential, but also help you to level up to really build that generational wealth. If you want to find out more, book in for a free strategy session with myself or attend one of my wealth hacking events that's coming up in June, where I'll be showcasing to you in one house or under one roof, not only myself, but residential investment, as well as crypto, as well as share trading, so you can build that full-on financial wealth plan that you need to get started and level up to the next level. So $1 million retail shopfront, what does that look like? Now, remember, we've come through COVID, and during that time, people have been really reluctant about investing anything but industrial properties. But however, 2025 has seen a slight turn because warehouse industrial properties seems to have much lower yields, and they seem to not have the same luster and growth and oomph that they had 3 or 4 years ago. Now, if you invested in a retail shopfront before COVID, you might have found it had a little dip, and it might be really hard to get tenants to sign longer leases, and that might not have promoted you to buy another one or think about keeping it. Or alternatively, you might have gone through COVID and watched how there was the shutdowns, and now the market's coming back, how it's not that quite busy, and there's a lot more takeouts, so maybe retail isn't great. But however, you've got to remember, $1 million retail properties are going to be strata properties. So whether you're buying a retail shopfront, whether you're buying a retail warehouse, both of them will be strata properties in metro areas. In regional, depending on where you go, you may have the option to be able to buy freestanding properties that are retail shops or warehouse showroom properties. So you may have that option in regional depending on how far you go. But right now, when we talk about metro, they're both going to be strata properties. So when you're buying a retail premise, it's going to be below a high rise of properties. It's going to be the shops below there. So you might have high rise apartments, 100, 200, or maybe only 50, and you might have 3 or 4 shops, or you might be one of 10 or 20 shops. So that's where the retail shop fronts are. Now, remember, the tenants of retail shop fronts don't have to be restaurants or food. They can be destination tenants like an NDIS provider, like a dentist, a medical center, a childcare center, a government tenant like Centrelink or JobLink that will provide ongoing services to the public. So the main thing is retail shopfronts are set up to actually deliver services to the public. Now, when we look at commercial property, there's really 3 major sectors: industrial warehousing, retail, and office spaces. Now, as people don't want to invest in office spaces, they may now choose to invest in retail shopfronts. So $1 million, what can you expect? In the city, $1 million will probably buy you somewhere between 70 to 120 square meters of retail space, depending on the location. It's a little bit further out of the city, you might get a little bit more, you might get towards that 150, closer to the city, and the more that it is closer to the density of population, the smaller it's going to be, even though you're paying for the same $1 million, because a lot of that is dependent on the rent. Now, if you're further out of the city, then your rents are going to be cheaper, so you get more space for your $1 million. Closer to the city, the rents are higher, so you get a smaller space for the $1 million. However, your tenants are dependent on foot traffic in terms of a retail shopfront. So that retail shopfront needs to have really, really good traffic, and it needs to be not being inhibited by parking issues, logistic issues, or other tenants who block the view from people walking past and seeing the actual property. Now, of course, you would have destination tenants like a medical center, a legal office, wealth managers, or somewhere like a Centrelink where people are going to go no matter how hard the parking is or how hard it is to get there, right? But ultimately, retail shopfronts are dependent on these things such as traffic, location, and other tenants, so the tenant hub. Their returns right now in this current market in metro areas, it's somewhere around that 5 to 6% yield. Now, in commercial, it is a net yield. So when I talk about yield, it's different from residential. It's a net yield. It means that it's after outgoings. So all outgoings, that's land tax, management fees, insurance, strata, body corporate, all of that out, it's net 5 to 6%. Now, why do I say 5%? You might go, oh, it's really low at 5%. Well, if you want to buy in Sydney and you want to buy in a good location where there's density, it is going to be around that 5% mark, especially when you have maybe an allied health or a medical tenant, it will be around that 5% mark. Now, if you are looking at buying somewhere like a Melbourne or Brisbane or maybe even a little bit further out, then you're expecting it to be about a 6% yield. So on $1 million purchase, you get $60,000 net in your pocket. That's after expenses before you pay your mortgage. Now, if your mortgage, if you're borrowing 65 or 70%, maybe somewhere between 40 to 45,000, you're still clearing about $15,000 in positive cash flow from that property in retail. So that is the profile of your property retail. Now, let's compare that with a warehouse property. A warehouse property is going to be a strata, so you probably will be in a business park of some sort. There will be other light business parks along the way in the whole suburbs. The whole suburb will be zoned industrial, and you'll have what we call this business type industrial properties. So they're going to be little warehouses somewhere between 150 to 250 square meters. Sometimes you're buying the areas of the Gold Coast, or if you're buying in really specific areas of Melbourne or Brisbane, you might find them to be actually much smaller. They might be 125 square meters because the rents are so much higher. Now, I would prefer 150 to 250 square meters in terms of these warehouses. A lot of them are 2 levels, which is perfectly fine. So first level is your warehouse, may have a little bit of a little office space down the bottom where you do B2C, so business to consumer. The rest might be B2B, and then you've got the upstairs level where there's a bit of an office space for basically having the head office or the distribution office there. Now, 2 levels are fine. Not a big fan of tri-levels. I've seen them on much smaller footprints going up 3 levels. I find that really, really hard when you're if you wanted to do dual tenancies in the future, or really, really hard when you're trying to re-tenant because the tenant most of the time don't have a lift, have to go up 3 levels. And unless they have 3 businesses, it's very, very hard. So I like 2 levels are fine, single level is perfectly fine. So you're typically in a business park of maybe at best, maybe 8 or 12 of them in little rows. Or if you're in a big business park, it could be 30, 40, 50 of them, right? And that means that you are part of a strata, so a body corp. So in a body corp situation, you share things like the common driveways, the roofs being taken care of by the body corporate, you have a general insurance that covers the whole area. Now, what kind of tenants are you going to have here is the type of tenants that's not going to be your lawyers and accountants, you're not going to have a dentist, a medical profession, and you're not going to have a childcare. So what you're going to have is trade. So there may be logistics, maybe storage, they may produce something online, so they may sell clothing online, they may distribute baby products, they may distribute beauty machinery or allied health machinery online, and this is their warehouse where they store the goods coming in from importing, and they may then distribute it. Or they may do commercial cookery. So things like when you look at those broths, when you look at those bakeries, those are done in warehouse spaces. So those are going to be typically what your warehouses will be. They might even have photographic studios in there. They may have things like where your customers who visit them, like a design studio or a wedding photography, or they may even have like leisure stuff. So you can have, if it's a big enough warehouse, which won't be bought for $1 million, child play centers and things like that. So that's the fundamental difference, is that firstly, you've got the different types of tenants. Secondly, the yield in warehouse property used to be really, really good. Back in the day, back 10 years ago, industrial properties would be getting you 7-8% in metro areas, but today they're only delivering 5.5%. So you want to buy an industrial warehouse property around that space of $1 million, it's about 5.5% net. So compare that to retail properties, you get $55,000 versus $60,000. So you're $5,000 less in terms of your cash flow. But how about the growth? Now, when we look at a retail property, remember, they've had stagnant growth for the last 2 to 3 to 5 years because people have neglected as a class to invest in. They've actually put all their money into a industrial commercial property. So as a result, industrial commercial properties that used to be worth $400,000 5 years ago is now worth 800,000. Now, properties that used to be 500,000-600,000 is worth $1 million or 1.1 million. So what you're really buying today is someone's property that they bought for 500,000 or 600,000 4 or 5 years ago. Today you're buying that same property for $1 million. Now, is it worth it? Well, rents has certainly gone up in the last 2 to 3 years in the warehouse space, but it still means that the growth that you're seeking on the back end of an industrial property that you saw was so good in the last 3 to 4 years has already been realized by the market. So what you are going to capture is the last 20%. So your property may grow by 20% over the next 3 or 5 years, but it's not going to double itself in value, especially the smaller properties around that $1 million mark where you're 100 to 250 square meters. The reason is heaps of green fields. Developers realized how much demand there was for that type of property when COVID hit. They've gone out and built and built and built, and there's a whole heap of them still to come onto the market, and that's going to stagnate the growth of rent and stagnate the capital growth of that property. So you may find that you will be able to, in time, get about 6% yield in different parts, especially in fringe parts of different cities for an industrial commercial property, and that will match what you get in retail. But the growth on the back end, you're going to get so much better in a retail property because they have been stagnant for the last 4 or 5 years because it hasn't been the class that people chose to invest in. So that's been stagnant. So now the choice you've got to make is, do you invest in something that already had its run in capital growth, or do you switch into buying something that hasn't had the run in capital growth and will have in the next 3 to 5 years? So that is a decision you have to make, and it all comes down to mindset, right? But thinking right, doing right, and understanding what you want to invest in, but also building out that pathway. And that's what I specialize here at Unicorn Commercial Property, help everyday Australia build a true blueprint to financial freedom. And that's what we do as part of our Market Ready course. This is what we do as part of our community and for all of our live events. So if you're interested in that, do book in for that strategy session. There is down below a link that takes you to a form. Fill that in. That form gets sent directly to me. My emails are monitored, and we'll shoot you back an email to say, hey, when would you like to book in for that strategy session, and organize that strategy session with you. Make sure you do put in that you've heard about it on YouTube, because only as a YouTube viewer and a subscriber do you get that personalized strategy session from me for free, rather than going through the rest of our team. So make sure you do go through this channel. So now we've looked at it, the yields, right? So if you're buying in metro areas, it's typically 6% in terms of retail, 5.5% in terms of warehouse properties. So 6% in retail, 5.5% in warehouse properties. Growth-wise, you're going to have more growth in the next 5 years from your retail properties versus industrial properties, purely because industrials already had a run, retail hasn't. This is in the metro area. Now, in regional areas, you will get a little bit more than that. So in areas like in your large regional towns, you'll probably get about a 6.5%, maybe to a 7% in terms of a warehouse property, and definitely starting with a 7% in terms of a retail property in regional. So retail is always going to sit 0.5% to 1% higher than industrial right now. So that's why if you're looking for cash flow, then retail property should be your choice versus your warehouse properties. And also, if you have the time to wait for capital growth, then retail is also a great option for the next 2-3 years to actually get you leveraged up to the next deal, rather than waiting for warehouses to have more capital growth, which may take 3 years before it has that run again in terms of their growth. So hopefully that has been really helpful for you to understand the difference between retail and industrial properties. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment or a like so I know that you like, and I can make more content of this sort as well. But thank you very much for watching, and I'm going to give you the type of property and the profile you're going to need to be able to invest successfully in either retail or warehouse industrial properties. Now, warehouse industrial properties, do not invest in silos or man caves. Do not invest in properties that's a 60 square meters industrial warehouse property. They are not true industrial warehouse properties. They are gimmicks, right? And the reason they are gimmicks is because they're made for the one person, one man band, and it's really for you to store your additional crap in there rather than to lease it out. You're going to find to lease it out, they're going to be doing retail like leases, which is even going to benefit you. You need to look for 150 to 250 square meters in terms of usable warehouse space. Make sure it's functional for cars to get in and out. there is parking and there's loading bays and everything else so that it becomes functional use for someone who is a tradesperson. So think, if someone was an electrician, a carpenter, how would they utilize that space? Make sure you have power, make sure that it's easy to get to, make sure there's visitor parking. So make sure you have all of these profiles in that property when you choose it to make sure that it has the versatility for you to change different tenants throughout the years that you own it, because you might have this property for 10 years and you may swap out your tenant 3 times during that time, or you might have the one tenant but you don't know, and you don't know what the market will be, so it's better to be versatile. In retail, what you're looking for is location. So you might sacrifice a little bit of yield for location, right? Location, tenant hubs are the most important. Locations means that, is it an area that most people visit? Is it an area that has gentrified? Is it an area that's already become popular? The density is already to start and the demand's already there. With demand, the rents go up in retail, which means you're going to reap the benefits of increased cash flow plus increased value as well, plus the security of knowing that it's easily to swap out different tenants. Plus, what you're looking for is, what is that hub like? Are they professional? So if that strip is all professional, accountants, lawyers, wealth planners, you don't want to be putting a kebab shop in there. You want to put in an allied health or medical or other kind of professionals in there, maybe an IT or media company. If the whole strip is all food, you don't at the same time want to put a professional service in there, right? Because you want to fit where the hub is, because that's attracting the same traffic. And with the same traffic, the same tenant hub, it keeps the rents up, it keeps the professionalism of the area, and it keeps the security of your property. So make sure you look at that in terms of your retail. So here you go. You've got the 2 profiles. Go out there, find those properties. And if you don't know how to and you need a hand, come and find me here at unicorn.com.au. So at Unicorn Commercial Property, we help everyday Australians become profitable through investing in commercial, retire sooner, get to your financial freedom goal. And we have a proprietary way of doing due diligence and building out that pathway so that you can get to financial freedom faster. Now, we help everyday Australians through our buyer's agency service and our education and through syndications. So if that's what you're interested in, booking for that free strategy session below, or join our wealth hacking event coming up in June. My name is Helen Tarrant. Hit the subscribe button, give me a like, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.